This is about the survival of the human race, a sign of the times, an analysis, and a commentary. The war that does not exist. President Obama has outlined new guidelines for the use of drones to kill terrorists overseas in a major speech, supposedly reframing counterterrorism policy, but anti-drone activists in and out of Pakistan, as well as civilian victims in the tribal areas where many of the drones have struck, remain pessimistic about the White House's new approach to the controversial program. Although senior militants have been the prime targets of the unmanned spy planes, many civilians, including women and children, have lost their lives or become physically handicapped as a result of the drone strikes. Approximately 1 of every 4 of those killed by drones in Pakistan between September 3, 2010 and October 30, 2011 were classified as other militants, documents detail. The other militants label was used when the CIA could not determine the affiliation of those killed, prompting questions about how the agency could conclude they were a threat to U.S. national security. The uncertainty appears to arise from the use of so-called signature strikes to eliminate suspected terrorists, picking targets based in part on their behavior and associates. A former White House official said the United States sometimes executes people based on circumstantial evidence. 3 former senior Obama administration officials said that some White House officials were worried that the CIA had painted too rosy a picture of its success and likely ignored or missed mistakes when counting death totals.
Now, the majority of our political and military class have all embraced drone warfare as the future. From their cheers for the strike that killed Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen, and the same congratulatory tone that we hear every time a Taliban commander is said to have been killed in Pakistan, to their willingness to appropriate money towards buying and building and developing many, many more of them. But what we rarely see are questions asked about the legality and the ethics or the morality of using unmanned aerial vehicles to kill from afar in other countries based on what could be faulty intelligence, all with the push of a button. Now, what we see even less are the often devastating results of civilian deaths. Well, now human rights groups are launching a broad-based campaign to legally challenge drone use in courts in Pakistan, Europe, and the U.S. And it's a joint effort by the British-based group Reprieve and their Pakistani partners, the Foundation for Fundamental Rights. And one of their first targets is the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan, Cameron Munter, questioning his role in authorizing a drone strike where 2 young boys, ages 12 and 16, were killed. So let's hear more about this. Joining me to discuss it is Clive Stafford-Smith, the founder of Reprieve. Clive, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And, you know, you have been, you're a human rights activist. This is what you do. And so you fought also for the rights of Guantanamo detainees, you know, not to have people be detained indefinitely without any court of law there. But unfortunately, that's still going on. Guantanamo is still open. We still have indefinite detention. Why have you now switched your focus to drones?
Well, I haven't given up on Guantanamo. We've still got a lot of work to do there, obviously, because we haven't won that battle completely. But I do think we've come a long way. But one thing that President Obama said is he's opposed to Guantanamo. And unfortunately, the consequence of that is that the new policy is to basically take no prisoners. So if you start firing these drone missiles at people, you make just as many mistakes as we made in Guantanamo. And believe you me, I've been there many times and we've made a lot. But now we're actually killing the people instead of holding them in a god-awful place like Guantanamo Bay.
Now, one of the things that you're starting with here, as I mentioned, is going after the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan over a drone strike where 2 young boys were killed, one 12, one 16 years old. And you actually, you knew.
In a speech at the National Defense University in May, President Obama defended his administration's use of targeted killings. He acknowledged that there had been civilian casualties and that drone technology raised profound questions about who is targeted and why. But he also said the CIA's drone program was legal, lethal, effective, and the most humane option for counterterrorism.
I thank my friend, and I want to thank both of my friends, the chair and the ranking member, for the work that they do on intelligence. You make a commitment to this country, and I think the country's in good hands because of your work. But I want to raise a question, and we've had some of these conversations between ourselves. I'm very concerned about the shift that's occurred in our national security policy, where the Central Intelligence Agency has increasingly played a very powerful paramilitary role with the execution of drone strikes. Numerous studies have indicated that there are many innocent civilians being killed by drone strikes. There's a lack of accountability here. And there have been studies that suggest, for example, in Yemen, that drone strikes are stirring up anti-American sentiment to the point of where al-Qaeda is actually being empowered. We really have to ask of the CIA, but even more than that, of our entire national security infrastructure. What's the game plan here? We see there have been changes in military policy where certain functions have been ceded to the CIA. We see that the changes in foreign policy, where the State Department has let go of some of its functions. We know that the military has made an attempt with the Defense Intelligence Agency to try to become more actively involved as a separate organization. They were seeking 1,600 new spies. We have this architecture of national security which is so powerful, but I'm not sure that it's actually that effective. And I don't question the effectiveness of our chair or our ranking member, but I do question the effectiveness of what we're doing. Could I ask one more minute?
Yes, one more minute.
But I do question the effectiveness of this drone program, its adherence to international law or lack thereof, the intel gathering on targeted killings, where we've seen reports of efforts of one group to target individuals in other groups as a way of trying to settle some scores between people, so they put them up as a potential terrorist and they get marked on a list and executed. And as I mentioned earlier, the concern about civilian deaths. I think that the Central Intelligence Agency functions best in gathering intelligence, and we ought to support them in that regard. And I was very concerned and expressed this on this floor about what happened in Benghazi. I mean, if we'd paid more attention to the CIA, we probably would still have some of our officials there alive, but that's gone. It's over. But we have to recognize that putting the CIA more and more into a paramilitary position is not in the best interest of this country, I don't believe.
And this, too, is another sign of the end of times, as we know them, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary changes, happenings, and events, because it's about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations, and that should be a very important question to ask. Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes, in diverse places. 8. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Everything is connected, and everything is numbered, and all these are more signs